Well, good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill.
This is FNC's Morning View, and today we're talking about data.
Well, we always like to talk about data. Data's good stuff, but we've been hearing some rumors lately that the GSEs are not happy with a lot of their data extraction and all of these appraisals that are coming back.
Well, now is this from the New York Times? You usually quote the New York Times.
No, this is from deep sources.
So this is like undercover.
Undercover, yeah.
Okay, so let's take a step back and let's talk about some of the issues around not having data, and then why the GSEs would want lenders to submit both data on the loan file and separately data on the appraisal.
Well, for a long time, well, forever, the GSEs essentially have had no data about the appraisal. They've had the appraised value, and that was the limit of it.
The servicer got the file.
Right.
The GSE's got a limited data set.
Right, and so...
maybe 30 fields on the appraisal, maybe?
Well, that was
Fields.
extracted, yeah. I mean, mostly things like the address, the appraised value, the owner's name.
The date.
And so...
And the servicer got the whole file.
The servicer got the file. The GSEs really had no data to speak of at all. There are about 800 or 900 fields on the appraisal, and they just basically didn't see any of that.
The 1004.
1004, right.
And a limited delivery set from the 1003 and the other documents.
Right. And so what they decided to do was to try and get more data on the appraisal so that they could do better due diligence on the loan file.
Now, you're an economist. Is data important?
Oh, data's big.
well, an economist, the only thing better than data is more data, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's talk about the ways that lenders obtain appraisals and the way they assimilate mortgages from a format perspective. So we've seen all sorts of things. In fact, years ago we were delivering files and we had paper coming in. Does paper still come in?
Oh, it sure does. However, the GSEs are now mandating that all the appraisals come in as data. And
the Uniform Appraisal Data Set Initiative and the Uniform Collateral Data Portal.
Right. So the lender has to upload the appraisal in some way that they can extract the data.
The originating lender.
Right. And so that's causing some issues because there are really three ways that you can get data off of the appraisal. One is you can have the appraisal in a format that is data.
Some sort of XML. And there are a lot of flavors of XML.
Yeah.
But XML is like ice cream. There's peach and there's cherry and there's strawberry and pistachio. But essentially it's all XML.
Right. Essentially XML data essentially says, okay, here's what the next data field is going to be. And then here's the next one, and that's what it is, and so on. And so it defines what the data is, so it's easy to read
Just
and
a
easy to
schema,
work.
just a structure.
Right. Exactly. And then the other, another way is to get a PDF that is generated right out of a form software package.
From the appraiser.
From the appraiser. And that allows them to extract that data. And here's where the rub comes. That process isn't 100% correct.
Really?
Oh, jump back. Yeah,
Shocking.
it's and there are errors in that extraction process. And the reason for that is that there are many different converters to PDF.
Well, are all of the versions of the form software the same, or are they different? So let's take, for example, there are several appraisal forms vendors out there.
Right.
Are all of their, for example, Form 1004, the standard Uniform Residential Appraisal Report, is every one of those produced by the same vendor the same, or is it different for every version?
It's different for every version, and that's where a lot of the problems are.
So there are lots of permutations and combinations of how that data is structured.
Right, and so when you're trying to extract data out of a PDF, you have to first of all recognize what form it is. Secondly, what vendor generated it. Thirdly, what version of that form vendor's software produced it. Okay, and in some cases, was it produced by a PDF writer that was different than the standard one that was delivered with the software?
So that sounds like it takes a lot of tedious design
Right.
for the software to extract the data.
And let me explain a little bit about how that PDF extraction works. When you open up a PDF, there's all this data in there, but it is not nicely oriented in exactly the same way that it exists in
Just
the
all mushed
view.
together.
It's mushed together, and it's not even in the same place, okay? So part of one line may be over here, and the rest of that line may be way down here.
So it truly is like an Oreo cookie. You've got a wafer on top, a wafer on the bottom, and that cream in the middle is the data, but it's just like that cream. It's all mushed together.
And it's been smushed several times.
Exactly. People sit on it a time or two. And so what has to happen is there has to be a lot of design time around extracting that data correctly. Well, that's the
Right.
second way. So first we talked about XML, and that's the cleanest way.
Uh-huh.
A cleaner way is a first generation PDF. That's one created by the appraiser. Now, there's another form of a PDF that's really not a PDF per
Right.
se.
Well,
We call it a
it's a
second generation
PDF,
PDF, but it's not one that's got the native data.
There's
in
no
it.
data in it. It's just a picture of the appraisal.
And that's where basically you have someone who is printed in whether using a PDF writer typically,
Well,
or some sort of PDF
Yeah, it's
format.
been generated either through some process that creates a picture of that document. Either it was faxed or it was printed onto paper and then imaged off of that paper, or some other way of generating a image. It might have been made into a TIFF file, which is an image file, and then converting it over to a PDF.
Well, so we have this third way, which is basically a fax, a piece of paper, or something equivalent to that.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit about data extraction from
Well,
those.
that's another big
documents.
challenge, because either you have to have someone who reads that and types out the data on that into some sort of a data
Are you a
format
good
that can be
typist?
uploaded. I'm a terrible typist.
So can you do 100 words a minute?
I don't think so, Bill.
So speed is important
Of
if you're going to do
course,
it by
it's-
manual entry.
exactly.
It's also expensive and it's
Very
slow.
expensive, yeah. One way that we developed, 11 years ago, was a combination of using technology and manual verification through an OCR process, optical character recognition, so that the software identifies the field, tries to convert those images into actual data, and then it's presented to a person to actually verify and say, is that correct or wrong, and if it's wrong, fix it.
And for our listeners out there, they're saying, well, who still submits documentation in paper? Actually, quite a few lenders, because what happens is they will send the appraisal to the GSEs,
Right.
but the GSEs keep the data. And so now an originating lender turns around and sells that loan to a correspondent downstream.
Right.
And there used to be delegated underwriting, but today there is no delegated underwriting. Well, they call it delegated underwriting, but the truth is it's trust but verify,
Right.
which means you
You
re-underwrite
redo
everything.
it all, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
And so the aggregating lender, the purchasing correspondent, then has to turn around and somehow get that data, either manual entry, because it's coming in, it tends to come in as a paper file or
Right.
some image of that file, and it's equivalent of paper.
That's right, and it's a big challenge, and even some cases the lender, before it's submitted to the GSE, receives that as paper, has to be converted. And recently, what we've been hearing is that the GSEs are tired of all these errors, and they're saying, look, we're going to hold the lender responsible for those data extraction errors. And so it's going to be very important to the lender to make sure that the data, if it is extracted either by PDF or OCR, is extracted correctly.
Now we have to caution, this is today only rumor. There has been no official pronouncement, but you know how rumors are. They might be true and they might not be true.
Oh, it's true.
It's one of your deep sources, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Well, so to summarize all of this, this is becoming a bigger issue. In addition to the appraisal, there's also the uniform loan delivery data set.
Right.
So the GSEs have revamped what is delivered to them to capture more of the data so they can hopefully develop better risk controls and better predictive methods as these loans are submitted to
Right.
reduce their losses.
You know, and that increased transparency of the whole loan file is only going to improve the quality control and all the documents,
Absolutely.
assuming they can get the data right.
because data extraction is only as good as the accuracy of the data
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
extracted.
And you know, it's remarkable. You have to be very, very accurate on that process in order to get an appraisal through with no errors. I mean, when you start having 800 or 900 fields on there, you have to have accuracies pretty close to 100%
To pass the whole thing
pass
through.
the whole thing. I mean, it's tough.
One last thing, and some of our listeners out there may ask, well, what if you have inaccurate data extraction and it causes a rule to fire? That means you do too much risk review.
Right.
So basically it creates operational inefficiencies, but it's actually a good thing from a risk perspective because you're
Always
actually
catches
drilling down too much,
Right.
more than you needed to.
Exactly. But I don't know how that's going to impact the GSEs. We have our own set of rules, but the GSEs, if a rule fires, I'm not sure how that's going to exactly play. So we'll have to listen for more rumors.
Well, this is FNC's Morning View. I'm Bill Rayburn with Bob Dorsey. You all have a fantastic day.